Well, apparently we have like 30 minutes, which is kind of a good thing when I've given these lessons before, but I've got to go really fast,
Okay.
you know, and I
So,
kind of to get through it all.
all right.
And normally, when I go really fast, you've already read the book a few times, so that's excellent. I can easily go real fast with you.
Okay.
And then I kind of suggest if you're going to ask questions, it might be at the end, or if you
Okay.
think it's a quick answer right in the middle, or that sort of thing.
I think we can
So,
do that.
okay. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay. The Genesis, how it all started. I'm a civil engineer, and I was having problems in contours, land maps, all that stuff is the beginning of every project I ever do. And so I sat down one day, figured it out, and haven't misread a green since. If I have, I did some pilot error and I fixed it. Okay, so we've been through that. All right.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. So, what is green reading? And of course, the example I have in yellow there is be very important that you remember for the same putt. You got speed and line that you like to hold putts or have a foot behind it, but a ram it in the hole golfer would have a different aim line than a die it in the hole golfer. And anyway, so that's all taken into account when you calibrate in this particular method of green reading. The ram it or the die it in the hole all affects the gaps. So again, on tour, there are four methods of green reading seen on TV, and we'll cover those in a minute. So one end of the spectrum of the ball rolls in the opposite direction of your green read. That's probably the worst you can get. And the other end is you think it's straight in, you stroke it perfectly on line, yet it rolls over the edge of the cup. That's only 2¼ inch misread and miss. So that's about as little as you can get for misread. And it's my contention that optical illusions, period, is what causes misread greens. And not just the eyes showing wrong break direction, but seeing too much break or not seeing enough break or optical illusions as well. So WOI is the world of optical illusions, which all golfers not using egos is my contention that are in right now. Okay, go over here. How many green reads are there on tour? And my contention is there are 2,000 green reads for average typical golfer, tour pro golfer, plays 100 rounds, which is a lot, but they play that. So any questions on that?
No,
You're with that?
you're probably right on that number of green reads.
Okay. Absolutely. So if I take out nine, just an arbitrary number of kick-ins, so 2,900s, and you can just read that. So I go over here and I go, well, why did the Tour Pro, if the Tour Pro was God, he would obviously one putt everything, but he doesn't. So on average, his PGA statistics show that it's 29 and change for the average golfer of 170 golfers or so. And you can go to the site right now and they'll give you the average number. So I just take 29 minus 18 meet on average 11 two putts, which would equal seven one putts. Anyway, why do they two putt? Well, one of three reasons: mishit putts, imperfections on greens, or misread greens. And my contention is he's a tour pro. She or he, they don't mishit putts, or they wouldn't be there because there's so few of tour pros, people in this world making a living of the 55 million. Imperfections on greens, so rare, it's negligible anymore. So my contention is that every putt is misread putt. All right, they just misread it. So I concede one just to round off to 10. Now you could take this number to six, seven, eight, nine, whatever. It's still a big number. All right. So anyway, at 10, that's 40 misreads per tournament. So if you do the math, that's basically that's 50% of all green reads are misreads. All right. Now, Tour Pro will never admit that. Can't say I blame him, as you read in the book in the prelude, because you can't get over a putt thinking, I don't know where this is going, or I'm misread this 50%. You got to at least brainwash yourself that I've got this all under control. All right. And again, this is the Tour Pro thinking, you know, They believe they don't ever misread a green ever because I work harder than all others. And I've actually had Scott Brown tell me that in Palmetto, South Carolina. And I just shook my head as I was watching TV with him in the pro shop. And Gary McCord was going, this guy's going to miss this putt to the left. You know how I know that? Because 50 golfers before him missed it to the left. And sure enough, he missed it to the left. So it's a huge optical illusion that nobody saw. So, and you can get that. Unfortunately, Gary McCord isn't around anymore, but he was real good at that.
Mhm.
Four methods of green reading: staring, foot feeling, map reading, and memory. And if you read all those, basically they just don't work. They don't rid of your lying eyes. All right. So right here, I say to rid of your lying eyes, you must do egos because it has the math. And it actually works on every single putt. If it didn't work, it's pilot error and you get it corrected. And right here's the math, And if aim point worked, I would like to see some pages like this showing me the math. You're not going to get them. And that would go even with map reading. They're going to show me some pages like this and how it works. You're not going to get them. But anyway, there it is. And would love anybody to take it to a mathematician or whatever to to look at it and say, well, this isn't right or this is perfect. All right.
Mhm.
So here's the crux right here. A equals B equals C, which are these gaps right here. As you can see, the golfer is standing, he gets his spine perpendicular to the slope of the ground, which is A right there. There's the slope of the ground.
That's
And then, of
correct.
course, B is the actual angle gap that he's going to get in front of him, which will be C right here. This gap for every putt eliminates lying eyes all the time. If it goes right through the center there, you got on straight ground. And of course, break is always from the shaft to your first object, which is the cup here. So you got left break here on this putt. If it was over here, you would have right break.
Got it.
But this is the crux, I call it. A equals B equals C, and it's actually 10th grade geometry. Everything that we did up here is actually 10th grade geometry. All right. So just this, I'm going to skip that page there. And I go, once you calibrate that gap, you're going to have a good read for every putt. And my thing is, even a tour pro could have his caddy do the read for him and just tell him where to go. And a lot of tour pros probably have an issue with that. They want to be in total 100% control, but there'd be trust issues. But if the ball keeps disappearing in the hole based on the caddy's read, those trust issues I'm contending will go away real fast.
Yeah.
So anyway, I go 10 more putts. You're going to have 10 more looks using egos on average. A tour pro will have 10 more looks than they have today to make putts. So will they, I'm thinking they will jar 5 to 6 of these 10. All right. And then some days they'll make them 9 or 10 of the 10, which would be godlike. So
Can I
anyway,
interrupt right here?
sure, fire away.
If 10 misreads per round, don't you think that some of those misreads are actually going in because even though they misread it, the stroke is not perfect as well always? I just wonder about that.
You can make you misread it and then mishit it. Okay.
Exactly.
And then you have an opportunity to make that. Yeah,
Well, I
it can
think,
happen.
yeah, because
I, I, I
sometimes people have,
to amateurs that happens probably a lot, but I'm
yeah,
talking
well,
tour
I
pros here.
see amateurs all the time. They have a misread and they
Hmm.
consistently misread the wrong way. And so they develop a stroke bias to match their misread and
There you
they
go.
hole putts that they read wrong. But so anyway, I didn't
Absolutely.
mean the interruption, but I guess what I'm getting at is you're talking about tour pros having 10 misreads around, and I believe that's accurate.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
they ought to jar 5 to 6 of those 10 misreads, but that doesn't mean with this system they're going to pick up 5 strokes around, maybe more like 1.5 or 2.
I'll I'll buy that.
Okay,
Absolutely correct. Yeah.
okay. That's where I was going
And
with that.
and
Sorry about the interruption.
and and actually, the reason is because some of these 10 reads are going to be from very far away. All right. It
Yeah,
hasn't been put in play in the very Tour Pro that they can't make those two. But I'm saying right down here at the bottom is if we go in there in the analysis and say a 45-foot putt that finishes 2 foot from the cup all the time, I consider that jarred.
exactly.
So I'm embellishing a little bit here. So that's why I kind of
No,
consider and
that's
a tour pro would consider it jarred too.
well, that's
He
yeah,
would be thrilled that
absolutely, because you only make they only make 50% of the 8 footers. And so of course, if
and
yeah,
I'm
if
and
you
I'm
finish
saying
within
that
2 feet from 45 feet away,
that
that's a made putt.
with this green reading system, 10 footers, 8 footers is going to go way better percentages made. Okay. All right. And then I kind of guarantee this. If you have a putting coach, I'm going to just guarantee a tour pro because they're good is going to be in the 27s, which is always top five, the PGA Tour
Correct.
stats. And then I'm even going to go, if the caddy and the tour pro are reading with a tour coach, we're going to go the unprecedented 26s. So all that yet to be proven, but I'm confident in it. That's how confident I am of all this. All right. So we'll just go right in. It takes 3 steps: how to stand, where to stand, how to hold the putter, creating C. Again, it's not like horseshoes or hand grenades for close counts. You got to do it right, and you got to do it consistently the same. And this whole thing is here's my tool that I use in teaching. I put it on the green, and right there, you've created the B, the thing. And this is what you're going to create in front of you. So you get to get your body in this position right here. So right there we know if we don't create this gap right in front of you, then we know you're doing something wrong, and I can correct that. Not getting the eye on the range pole, tilting your body, whatever the case may be. So that's the tool that I use to teach.
Okay.
Right. Of course, how to stand. You stand by taking a nice wide stance and don't tilt in any direction or anything. And you wouldn't know how to tilt on real subtle slopes anyway, anything like that. And then do a little rotation to get your eye on the range pole, like here and like here. All right. And you can see here's the C that I'm creating with the range pole right in front of me. Here's the B. It's that simple. All right. Again, more how to stand. Again, and it's quick. You go up there, you pop a read, you get your thing, you do your gaps, and then for your next read, you just consistently seeing that you have the same gap so that it didn't turn flat at the hole or anything like that. So the read for your actual aim line right at the ball. You're basically straddling the ball. And then you're just checking that the slope stays the same.
Mhm.
How not to stand? Again, this is the way Ricky does it, and you don't get the spine perpendicular to standing this way on 1 foot, and your feet are too close together. Again, this is doing nothing other than staring. That's method one. All right.
Mhm.
He's virtually doing nothing but staring, Patrick Reed here, and same thing with Ricky here. Nothing else is he gaining from doing that, holding the putter up like that.
Agree.
Here's another picture of where Mr. Charlie Hoffman is he tilted his whole torso into a position to get over there when he shouldn't have done that. But he every read, that's what he does. He tilts. So, and actually this will work. This will actually come out in calibration as long as he does it the same every time. But I don't teach that. I would rather him get it right the first time rather than,
Yeah.
make
Well,
correct a
that's an
error.
example of any green reading. You make the same mistake over and over and you calibrate to that. It kind of sort of works.
kind of sort of works. Exactly.
But you
And
you
here,
want it to not kind of sort of work. You want it to always work and be the
yeah,
right way and consistent.
absolutely. And here's Michael Jordan doing something. He actually got a good stance. I don't know where he's standing properly, but that's the next thing. And where to stand is, again, as you can see here, it's good for 2 to 3 steps, is what I like to say. The read. So when you take your first read right here, right at the ball, looking at the cup, and you get this kind of read right here, well, you know you got a left breaking putt. And then if you've got 3 gap greens, 1, 2, 3, you're aiming right here. Okay, that's
Mhm.
your aim point. So then you go up to the hole because this is to win the U.S. Open. You don't want to if the ball has got flattened out at the hole or something. So you go up here, you take a read, and you just pop it up there, and it's the same gap looking back at the ball. All right. So it's the same gap, assuming you got your ball down. So you know the slope stays the same. You're going to make this putt. So no deviation at the hole will even be an issue. So again, this is to win the U.S. Open. You darn right, you're taking a read right there. Okay. Your chances you're the last one to putt anyway. All right. How not to stand. This guy, he's standing behind the ball. You don't want to stand back there because it's useless. You're not putting that way. You're not putting backwards. Again, another problem here. Where not to stand. Do not stand behind the ball. You know, holding the putter, you hold it very lightly. I'd suggest under the grip so that it can be like a plumb line, establish a true vertical. You don't want to grab it and hold it real hard, which you affect the putter going absolutely vertical. All right, and then creating the C, as you learned. You find that second object, you run the imaginary ground line right here, and you find that second object, lift the putter, put the bottom of it on there, and that takes some practice to make sure that you get this is the read you get, and your fingers are there. If your fingers are down here, you need to find another C. If it's up here, I mean another second ground object. If it's up here, you need to redo it real quick, or just move it down the line a little bit is what I do. A lot of times, I don't even find a second object. I just put it on that imaginary line. But that's just me. And you can make this your same your own, but again, got to be consistent. Do the same thing every time.
I
Okay,
found I
go
found
ahead.
that finding the second object was sometimes difficult, but I could do exactly what you said, have in my
Yeah.
mind an imaginary line from the hole to
Mhm.
the ball, and then aim off of that or take my read off of that.
Yep. So here's how it looks and finding the second object and getting after it. All right. So let's go into calibration real quick. Calibration. This is one of those Pell's strings, and I suggest you take a reed and have somebody or a caddy or yourself put the tee in the ground, like from here to here, this reed right here, where you got a nice right to left, left to right slope. And then just put the same distance from the center of the hole, tee there, tee there, tee there, and then make the putt at the speed you like to make it. All right. So for this particular example, I'm showing it, the speed I like to make it is a 4 gap read. So, and this is a level putt as well. So then when you get to the golf course, if you got a level putt, you take it 1, 2, you take this read right here. And I always use the center of the shaft. I don't use one side or another. I saw some videos where you did, but I just do it in the center of the shaft, which actually has kind of a line, a glare line on a chrome shaft anyway. And you go out to the golf course and you put imaginary tees down. You got your aim line, and then you roll it. You just remembered, a 20-foot putt. You just hit it twice as hard as you would. So you got a sense of feel as well, of a proportional feel. Okay. So that's what calibration is all about. Again, we go to the U.S. Open putt. First read is right here. This is your read. Two, three, four. This is where you're aiming, right out here. And then you go up here and take a read, and you get the same gap as here when you take the read. So it didn't reverse slope, it didn't flatten out. So you got the same slope all the way to the hole. No reason you should ever not make it because you've already calibrated it, and you've already got the feel, and just repeat what you've done. 30-foot putt. And this is a good one where you need to study this a little bit, and it's all quick. I take the first read right here and I get a gap. And this is the first read right
Mm-hmm.
here. And then I come up here to the second read and I get the same gap. Okay. So same slope, same everything. But then I get to the hole and it actually goes the other way. It actually turns and breaks the other way. And I go, whoa, it really changes direction. So I adjust the gaps. This four gap was in calibration to three gaps. All right. Because of that change right up here that I read. Now you can get pretty precise with that too. And how precise a tour pro can get, we will find out sooner or later. All right. So that's a 30 footer. How to determine uphill and downhill. Again, if it's downhill, you need to add another gap or half a gap. If it's uphill, depending on the severity, you need to take away a gap. And of course, adjust your stroke force as well. And the way to determine, if you can't always determine what's uphill and downhill, like a few times it is even confusing for me, you can actually just take a stance right here, sideways, and then find a first object, second object, and then slope or uphill. This slope will always fall this way. So from the shaft down this way. So if I get this right here, I know I have a downhill putt right here because slope falls from here downhill. From the shaft to the first object is downhill. So
You know,
that tells you,
that's so helpful because I play with a lot of guys who will literally ask, is this uphill or downhill?
yeah,
And here's a way for
it
them
can
to
be
go
an
find
optical
that.
illusion. Yeah, absolutely. All right, the grain effect is shiny is the same as a downhill putt, and against the grain, dull is the same as an uphill putt. So you just do the same proportions when you have grass. You got all Bermuda grass up there in Vegas, right?
Almost
Or do
all
you have any
Bermuda
bent?
grass greens. A few other
Yeah,
varieties.
bent
Actually a lot of Poa Nua, but I don't
bent grass.
understand why that. But yeah,
Yeah, bent grass doesn't really have this issue at all.
right.
Of course, the north and northeast and in the upper Chicago is all bent grass. So
Mhm.
it's good stuff. So is Augusta National bent grass. How they keep it alive is amazing to me.
The heath here
Creating
in
the
Bentgrass wouldn't survive.
yeah. So anyway, creating the true vertical is very important. And I saw your door thing, which is a great thing, and then learning the O clock. So again, I think we talked about how the USGA didn't like my decal or a dot that I put on a putter, and that they basically put me into the putter business. So by saying if you have an all balanced putter, it will, no matter what toe position, it'll be the same as a true vertical, which is what you need, which is the same as this string and plumb weight, which is a true vertical. All right. And this is converting your putter to put a dot. I actually sold about 200 of these that have engraved red dots. Uh, and then that's when the USGA told me that they were non-conforming. And I go, oh my God. So anyway, that's what got me into putter business.
Okay.
Uh, let's see. Using your training. Oh, you put the dot onto the second object. So this is using the putter with the dot. And again, explanation of how most all putters have different toe hangs and where to put the dot, which would be straight down. Okay, and then I got a nice little patent on this method of green reading and some testimonials. I got published in Golf Tips magazine, and this is the actual pages in Golf Tips magazine where I've been published. And this is my script that I gave to Golf Tips magazine. I just said, I'm going to write a book and it's going to be everything I know. So I just put everything in the book, everything. So this is a script for the Golf Tips. And this is the method of o'clock versus the gap. So o'clock works as well. If you can get all that. Time is running out. How much time do we have? I don't know. So Oh, they're 9 minutes and 52 seconds.
Yeah,
I'm
we're doing
about
great.
done. So anyway, the o'clock method, if you read the Golf Tips magazine, that'll work as well. And I did that for many years until some guy said, "Well, you need to do the gap method." And I said, "Okay, I'll go that route."
Well,
But either way,
I think it's a brain processing
yeah,
thing. Some people process better when they can
yeah,
visualize it on a clock
yeah.
face, and other people then see
I
angles.
I agree. And I've had people said, Andy, I can't do gaps, but I can do slots. And I says, well, I don't care what you call it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then this was my original in the magazines and in the book. And again, more original. And then converting your putter. And then finally, I got a USGA letter that my putter is conforming. So it,
Yeah.
it, it got approved. So I no longer sell non-conforming putters.
Right.
And then I go back into summarizing the facts that, again, and this affects your game big time because 40% of all strokes are putts, as Mr. One Putt there knows. And then I go into my guarantees again, which I'll stand by that. And here's the tool again, a picture of it. And here's the tool in use for my buddy Richard here
Mhm.
as he gets after it. And this tells me his stance is beautiful. And just as long as he keeps that same stance all the time and on every read, pops it up there and you're on your way. Here's my grandson doing it. This is I've taught in this garage many, many times. One time was to Phil Scott, Adam Scott's dad, while he was in the Masters. He absolutely loved it, but he's scared to bring it up to his son, and I don't know why, which I kind of find that amazing. I guess he just doesn't want to rock the boat or anything. I says,
Right.
well, you see how it works, right? Yeah, I get it, Andy. I get it. Love it. But he's not going to talk to his son about it. Unbelievable. But
Well,
anyway,
some people don't like being a pioneer, doing something new and different than everyone else is doing.
yeah, it is amazing. Common question is this plumb bobbing. And I like to say, egos, it has math, structured tip, guarantees, and bad reads that are easily corrected. Plumb bombing has zero of these qualities. So, uh, of the four methods of green reading on tour, plumb bombing is staring with a putter in the way. All forms of plumb bombing still leave you in the world of optical illusions. What I'm saying is egos get you out of that world of optical illusions, and egos alone does that. Now, obviously, when guys shoot 62, 63, 64. They're not seeing very many optical illusions that day. But since on average, they're still in the 30 putts, they're seeing more on some other days.
Right.
So, so not always are there optical illusions out there, but
Okay.
there are a lot. Uh, Again, the picture of my studio using this, showing the break right here, which is the plumb line right here. This is the angle B right here.
Mhm.
I teach on the golf course and in my little studio garage there. And that's that. Okay. All right. We went well there. I got 5 minutes left. Any questions?
Yeah,
Anywhere you want?
let's do a couple of questions. You talk about the guarantee under 27 putts around for Tour Pro and a caddy in the 26s. And you talk about if just using with their caddy, the guarantee is going to be under 28, 27. I always think about for amateurs, and I know distance and proximity to the pin is a big factor, but general rule of thumb, I want to be 30 putts around or less. What kind of
Mhm.
guarantee or what kind of expectation should somebody have using this system?
Well, of course, it depends on your level and your handicap and all that sort of stuff, but you're going to be better than you ever been before because you're going to have
Okay.
at least 10 more looks
So
on
somebody
average.
who's
So,
serious ought to be able to get below 30 points around because they're going to have at least compared to whatever green reading method they're using now, they're going to
yeah.
have 10 reads around that are better reads than what they've got currently.
Yeah. I've got my whole golfing group, we got 45 guys, any 24 to 28 show up in any weekday. And I'm going to say I've been doing this, of course, forever, and I've got about 4 or 5 of them that do it. All right,
Okay.
they just amateur golfers just aren't going to take the time. And the other thing is, which is a big thing, they don't see it being done on TV either, but
Yeah.
they see me making putts left and right. So I got 4, 5, 6 of them that are disciples, I like to say. And of course, every time I go out to play golf, Andy, will you read this for me? Will you read this? And I go, no, I can't. I don't play enough golf anymore
Yeah.
to read everybody's green for them,
Right.
and I've got to play. If I'm going to break 80 by some grade, anymore, I have to pay attention to what I'm doing and not be focusing on somebody else. So,
I get
but
asked to read a lot of greens as well, so I understand that.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Um, I appreciate that you pointed out you don't necessarily have to have what you call the second object, as long as you can, in your mind, come up with an
get it.
imaginary line
Yep.
along but between
Yeah.
the hole and the ball.
Yeah. I don't obsess over finding that second object, because I can get it on the line,
Okay.
but it just makes it easier teaching to begin with to teach the second object.
Sure.
And
I almost wonder with teaching if you couldn't take an alignment stick and use it along that line and then actually move the alignment stick with a mark on it to be your second object.
yeah, I think
Obviously, you'd
there's,
have to move it out of the way, but
yeah. Well, I don't know if you can do that on the golf course.
oh
Maybe
no,
in
you
training.
couldn't on the golf course, but I'm talking about
Yeah.
in a teaching training situation
Yeah.
to get
Yep.
people accustomed to that.
Yeah. I agree. That would be a good, good part. Absolutely. Yeah.
Your opinion, what's what's the weakness of the system? And I understand that's a difficult question, and maybe a better way to think about that is what's the most difficult thing for people to take in the system?
The most difficult thing is that it's not being used on TV, and they question that does it really work? Now, those that have mathematical proclivity, they don't question that at all. But the people that 99.9% of the population or golfers don't have that mathematical proclivity, and it's the brainwashing in their mind that and if they get a bad read, they get frustrated rather than seeking some solution to help
You,
because they're doing something wrong. They're tilting their head, they're not getting their eye, they're changing eyes when they take a read, you know,
okay,
or they're doing something wrong that just needs to be pointed out, but they get frustrated and the system goes into the toilet.
okay.
So that's the
Oh,
only thing I see.
all right. I also think probably helping people understand it's not the plumb bobbing voodoo that it's real math.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, it says that we have less than a minute, so
Yes, sir.
I guess we're going to have to wind it up.